Some people assume that if you're quiet, you're clueless. If you don't speak up, you must not get it. But often, the quiet ones are the ones seeing everything. You sit there watching someone talk circles, lie to your face, twist the truth to suit themselves, and you just nod. Not because you agree, but because you've already understood the pattern. You've seen this behavior before, maybe in a past relationship or at work. It always starts the same. Someone underestimates you. They think your silence means you're not catching on. But what they don't realize is you've already put the pieces together. You've already figured out what they're doing, how they're trying to manipulate the situation, and what they want from you. You're just choosing not to expose it. Yet, the most dangerous assumption toxic people make is thinking they're smarter than you. They think they can talk over you, gaslight you, shift blame, or play innocent without you noticing. They test boundaries to see how much you'll tolerate. And when you don't react immediately, they think they've won. But here's the truth. You're not reacting because you already know how it ends. You've seen the patterns. You've dealt with people who act sweet when they need something and disappear when you do. You've seen how people throw compliments to distract you from the control they're trying to take. And because you don't take their bait, they get confused. They expect a fight, but you've grown past that. You're not interested in performing outrage. You're interested in protecting your peace. There's a special kind of power in watching someone lie to you while knowing exactly what they're doing. You don't have to yell, prove, or defend. You just stay calm. Let them talk. Let them believe they're fooling you. Because eventually, they always reveal more than they intended. That's the thing about toxic behavior. It relies on confusion. But when you're clear-headed, it all becomes very obvious. The guilt trips, the manipulation, the pattern of blaming you for things they started. You don't need to argue, you just collect the truth quietly. And one day, when you finally walk away or go silent, they act shocked because they thought you didn't know. But you knew. You knew for a long time. You just waited for the right moment to stop engaging. Sometimes, your intelligence doesn't show up as quick comebacks or witty remarks. Sometimes it shows up as stillness, as listening, as letting someone talk long enough to realize you don't believe a word of it. Your IQ is venomous, not because you're cruel, but because your insight disarms people. You don't fight like they do. You don't chase drama. You gather facts. You observe body language. You recognize patterns in speech, tone, behavior. You catch microaggressions, dismissive comments, subtle digs, and you store them. Not to hold grudges, but to decide who's safe and who isn't. You don't explode. You just slowly stop offering access. That's what they don't understand. They never felt the moment they lost you, until it was too late. In friendships, this becomes very clear. You notice when the energy shifts, when conversations start feeling one-sided, when someone only calls when they need something. You don't call it out every time, but you feel it. You watch how they talk about others. You watch how they speak over you, how they avoid taking accountability, how they change topics when it gets too real. And you notice when you start feeling drained around them. That's your cue. You don't need to confront it with drama. You just begin to create space. You slowly pull back. You reclaim your time. And while they're wondering what happened, you're already at peace. Because you understood that the friendship ended long before the silence. You just chose not to announce it. It's the same in relationships, romantic or otherwise. Some people build their confidence off undermining you, off making you feel smaller, less certain, more dependent. They mask it as jokes, as just being honest. But it's not honesty, it's control. And the higher your awareness, the more dangerous you become to them. Because they can't twist your reality if you already see through them. They try to guilt you for having boundaries. They say you're distant when you don't argue. But what's really happening is that you've stopped making excuses for their behavior. You've stopped explaining your standards. And when you start saying no without justifying it, they panic. Because their influence relied on your confusion. Now that you're clear, they have no hold. You're not cold. You're just not playing anymore. You've learned that reacting gives away your energy. That proving yourself to someone who already decided to misunderstand you is wasted breath. So now you observe, you listen, and you decide privately. You don't explain who you've become. You just show up different, quieter, firmer, and they notice. They feel the shift. That's what they call venomous. But it's not venom. It's clarity. It's self-respect. It's refusing to hand over your peace to people who think they can manipulate you with charm 1 minute and guilt the next. Your mind sees it all now. And with that awareness, you no longer need revenge. You need distance. The hardest part is knowing that some people will never admit what they did. They'll rewrite the story to make themselves the victim. They'll say you changed. Say you're heartless. Say you walked away for no reason. But you'll know the truth. You always did. And you don't need their agreement to validate your decision. That's what maturity feels like. Walking away not because they hurt you once, but because they showed you a pattern, and you trusted your perception more than their excuses. You didn't make a scene. You made a boundary, and if that made them uncomfortable, so be it. Your job was never to protect their comfort. It was to protect your mental health. People who underestimated your awareness will always be caught off guard by your exit. They can't understand how you switched up because they never realized how much you were holding back, how much you saw but chose not to confront. You didn't switch up. You finally aligned your actions with what you've known for a long time. You deserve peace. You deserve honesty. You deserve people who don't play games with your time or emotions. And the moment you stop explaining that to people who don't want to understand, you unlock a version of yourself that no one can touch. That version doesn't chase closure. It creates it. You used to think silence meant losing. That if you didn't argue back, defend your name, explain every detail, they'd win. So you'd stay in the ring, throwing emotional punches, hoping something would finally land, hoping they'd finally understand where you were coming from. But they never did. And the more you fought, the more it drained you. You weren't even fighting them anymore. You were fighting the version of them you wished existed. The one that would stop hurting you if you just explained things better. The one who would suddenly see your worth if you just said it louder. But over time, through scars that didn't need to be visible to feel real, you realized the real win wasn't in staying to be heard. The real win was in walking out so quietly they had to sit in their own echo chamber and finally hear themselves for once. You learned that peace isn't soft. It isn't some weak surrender. It's the hardest decision you've ever made, to take all the knowledge, all the evidence, all the betrayal you quietly filed away in your chest, and walk out without a single scream. It's knowing you had the receipts, but refusing to throw them on the table because proving your pain was never going to make them care. It's that moment when you finally stop replying to attacks, not because you can't respond, but because you see the futility of bleeding for people who carry scissors behind their smiles. Peace is what you chose when you finally realized the war was only keeping you in a version of yourself that was always on edge, always waiting to be seen, always defending what should have never been questioned. And choosing peace was choosing yourself. They expected an explosion. They expected some messy departure, doors slamming rage texts, and all the drama they were used to. They wanted you to fight back because then they'd still have access to your energy. Then they could still spin it, tell people how crazy you were, how reactive, how difficult. They baited you with silence, with backhanded comments, with passive aggression, just to see if they could break your composure one last time. But you didn't give them the reaction. You gave them distance. You gave them silence that didn't just speak. It screamed. Because walking away with peace forces them to sit with something they never planned for. The realization that you didn't need to win the argument. You were done needing to be in it. There's something haunting about calm exits. The kind that don't come with warnings. The kind that don't include a list of reasons or a final attempt to be heard. The kind where you wake up one day, not angry, not bitter, just clear. Clear that no matter what you say, they'll hear it through the filter of their ego. Clear that no matter how much you explain, they'll twist it to suit the narrative where they're never wrong. So you stop speaking. You stop trying. You gather your things. Not just physical, but emotional. And you leave, not as revenge, but as resurrection. You let them keep their last word. You let them sit in the silence they thought you couldn't survive. And when they finally realize you're not coming back, that's when the real panic begins. They can't handle peace, because it doesn't give them anything to hold on to. There's no fight to rehash, no dramatic moment to blame, no easy storyline to sell to others. Peace becomes their punishment. They underestimated your awareness because you didn't interrupt. They underestimated your strength because you didn't shout. But walking away, not in pieces, not with a dramatic exit, but in your full power, robs them of the story they wanted to tell. It forces them to sit with the facts. And for people who've built their identity on playing the victim, that's unbearable. You didn't just leave the room. You took the truth with you. And now, every time they try to lie to themselves about what happened, they have to face the silence where your voice used to be. You had every right to rage. You had every reason to list the betrayals one by one, to call them out publicly if you wanted, to take the mask off their carefully curated persona. But you didn't, because part of peace is realizing how much energy you've spent trying to fix something that was built to fail. Some people don't want to grow. Some people don't want accountability. They want access. They want you to stay, even if it means shrinking. They want your attention, even if it comes from chaos. But you've evolved past the need to give that to them. Your peace is venom to people who thrive on disorder. And you knew that the deepest cut wasn't in confrontation. It was in unavailability. You used to replay conversations, thinking maybe if you said it differently, they would have heard you. You'd go back and forth in your head, trying to make sense of why they acted like your pain was inconvenient. But now, you've stopped repeating old scenes. You've stopped inviting ghosts to the table. Because peace taught you that closure isn't something you get from them. It's something you choose for yourself. You decide the chapter is done. You decide your energy is too sacred to be spent explaining what should have never required explanation. And the people who once had the luxury of misunderstanding you no longer have access to your vulnerability. That's the lesson your silence teaches them every single day you stay gone. And now they're stuck with the version of you that walked away mid-sentence. No closure, no final word. Just the memory of how calm your face looked when you realized they weren't worth another sentence. And the guilt they tried to avoid now grows louder with every attempt to replace you. Because they thought the war was keeping them important. They thought the back and forth meant they still mattered to you. But you cut off the supply. You shut down the system. And without your energy, they're left with nothing but echoes. Echoes of how much you saw, how much you endured, and how little they ever deserved to be at the center of your story.